All right, today we're going to look at tutorial 5, designing for the mobile web. So a couple things we're going to look at here is creating a media query, working with the browser viewpoint, apply a responsive design, create a pull-down menu with CSS, and create a flex box. We'll also look at working with flex sizes, explore flex box layouts, create a print style sheet, work with page sizes, and also add and remove page breaks. So we start looking at the responsive designs. In this table, we see here the user experience and the difference between the mobile and the desktop. So some of these things we see here, for example, is the page content. On the mobile devices, the content should be short and to the point. Where the desktop, it can be more extensive, giving readers opportunity to explore all facets of the topic. Hyperlink text for the mobile device, they need to be easy accessible via touch interface, where on the desktops, links can be activated by putting your mouse pointer or cursor over it more precisely. Also, things like network bandwidth, we have to take that in consideration. Mobile devices, sites that tend to take longer to load over cell networks. So your file sizes should be kept smaller, so it helps with that bandwidth. Where on the desktop, you have faster networks, high-speed networks, and it's able to easily handle larger file sizes. We also look at things like lighting. For the mobile devices, they need to be easily visible in outdoor lighting and use contrasting colors. Where on desktops, they can be viewed in office settings. It's got broader color palette you can use. We also have things here, for example, the device tools. Mobile sites, they often need access to devices such as phone dialing built-in cameras, or the videos, messaging, where you rarely have these on a desktop. So we look at the three primary components for responsive design theory. Flexible layout. All right, so the page layout automatically adjusts the screens at different widths. Okay, so we look at, we have to think in the concept that we don't know the device that the user is going to be using to look at our website. So if we use a fixed width for our websites, we could wind up to where the website doesn't scale with the device. So it may be a small instance, or it may be something that it's too big for the device even. Our responsive images, they rescale based on the size of the viewing device. And media queries that determine the properties of the device, whatever's rendered on the page, and so then it applies the appropriate designs for that device. So we look at media queries. They're usually associate a style sheet or style rule with a specific device or list of device features. When we create a media query with our HTML file, we add the following media attribute to either the link or style elements in the document head. So we see here we've got media equals devices. Devices is going to be a comma separated list of supported media types. So we look at our media types here. We have all braille, handheld, print, screen. Screen will be used for computer screens. Some of these may be like teletype machines, terminals, different media types that we can set this up. So we use the at media rules. Okay, so the at media rule, media queries, we use this, set up the at media devices. Okay, so the device is going to be the supported media types. And then we'll put our style rules in here. That's going to be what is being associated with that media. So using the media attribute, this lets it target a device based on its features. So we set media equal devices and or feature equals value. So this feature is the name of the media feature, and value is the feature's value. Now with this, we use the and or the keywords, and or keywords and those are used to create media queries that involve different devices and features, or maybe a combination of both of those. All right, so some of our media features may be our aspect ratio, which is the ratio of the width of the display to the height. We may have the height just set, so it's the height of the display area of the output device. You may have device height, device width, which is the height of the width of the rendering surface of the output device. Orientation, where it's either going to be set to portrait or landscape. Resolution, the width. So these are different media features we can set, and this is the description of those. Okay, so when you start applying media queries to a style sheet, the mobile first principle is one in which the overall page design starts with base styles that apply to all devices, followed by the style rules specified for mobile devices. Now, when we're talking about mobile devices, you're not only talking about like cell phones, but also tablets. So we have a tablet style that's going to be applied when the screen width is 481 pixels or greater. Desktop styles are going to be built upon a tablet style when the screen width exceeds 768 pixels. So as the screen width increases, more features that are found in the smaller devices are added or replaced. So we look at an example of our style sheets here. So we see right here at media only screens and the max width at 480 pixels. So this is our mobile size. You see in our comments here is it's going from 0 to 480 pixels. So if it reaches 481 pixels, it's not going to apply this style rules. It'll jump down to the tablet styles. And we see that the styles here have got the minimal width of 801 pixels. And then finally, this is our desktop style. So once it reaches to 769 pixels, it's not going to apply these styles. It's going to apply the media query it's set to the desktop. Okay, so our web page is going to be viewed with a window called the viewport. Now, mobile devices are going to have two types of viewports. You have your visual viewport and the layout viewport. Visual viewport displays the web page content that fits within the mobile screen, while the layout viewpoint contains the entire content of the page. Some of that may be hidden from the user as well. So look at the code here. We set our meta, our name equal to viewpoint, our content. Okay, so this content is the width is set to the device width. So it's going to set the width of the layout viewport to the width of the device. And then the initial scale is equal to 1, which means that the page does not automatically zoom out when the page is initially opened by the browser. You can also create a pull-down menu with CSS. All right, so in this, for example, we have the unordered list set submenu, and we put the display to none. Okay, so that prevents the submenu list from being displayed. So it's not automatically pulled out. You can also set this, we'll see this selector here. This is used to select the submenu that is immediately preceded by a hovered submenu title. Now, if we want to keep the submenu visible as the pointer moves away from it, from the title and hovers over the now visible submenu, we'll use the following code. So we'll put the submenu title, we'll set hover, UL submenu, and then we're going to keep telling it to hover over the unordered list. Now, if we want to make a submenu visible, we change this display property to block. So we set the submenu, and then we're going to make it visible with changes to block. There are ways to test your website on mobile devices. we see here some emulators that allow you to test your website. We have different emulators here. We also have the ability in Chrome, if you go to the menu, well, let me turn some stuff on first for this. So we're looking at the emulators here. All right, so in Chrome, we go to More Tools, Developer Tools. Now we see over here we have this device here. So let's just toggle our device. So if I want to see how this device is going to look, say, for example, in the Galaxy S5. If I want to see how it looks on an iPhone X. And I can also come in here and add iPad Pro. And I can come here to edit. And I can add other emulated devices. Okay, so this is a way I can test my phone or test my site, how it will look on certain devices. It is a good idea to do this. From a personal experience, website I was using, and I was using WordPress to develop the site, had everything perfect with the site that I loved it. It had the features I wanted. When I went to test it on the mobile devices, for some reason the template I was using for my WordPress site on the mobile device just completely deleted the menu. I could get nowhere but the home page. So I had to start over and added, in that case, I just added another template and everything worked fine. I just changed the template. But if I hadn't tested that, I would have never known that my mobile users could not view my website. So once again, if you want to test these, and this will toggle you back to the desktop. You go to menu, more tools, developer tools, or you can use Control-Shift-I. Click on the toggle, and then you can choose the device that you want to look at. You can also choose the zoom, look at how it looks, for example, low-end mobile. Now, this is not Google's pretty much the same site regardless of where you're looking at. I'm going to go to sportsillustrated.com, for example. So if I want to see how this is going to look on a mobile device, okay, so first we see how it looks on a desktop. I change this. We can see how it looks on different devices. So we'll look at an iPhone X. We'll look at it on a Galaxy S5. So we have our menus. And you have other options you can play with in the developer tools as well. So Chrome gives you an emulator. It's built in. Okay, 1 second. The PowerPoint's frozen up here. There we go. So you can download these emulators. You can work with those, or you can use the one that's in your browser. Now, if you're developing an app for the devices, I would recommend downloading the emulators and developing it in that. All right, so we talked about testing our website. This code you see on the screen here, this one's going to increase the size of the navigation links. This will hide the aside element. on mobile devices, so only on devices that have the max width of 480. In that, the aside elements will not be shown. All right, when you create a tablet design, we'll see here that we've got the app media on the screens, the max width of 481, or minimum width of 481. So we have our rules that's going to only apply to anything with that minimum width. And we've got the position of our main menu set to relative. We've added a drop shadow for this for each sub menu, and we set the position as absolute. And then we do the same thing here. We're adding the designs for the desktop design. So you reset the CSS rules that's going to be set up. You'll have one for cell phone devices, mobile devices, one for tablets, and then one for desktop. So once again, continue with the desktop. We'll see here that it's only going to be applied to screens. It's got a minimum width of 769 pixels. And things we're doing here is like removing the drop shadows, setting the width of the submenus to 100%, expand the navigation list, hide submenu titles. Look here, we're going to float the main article with a width of 55% and a right margin of 5%. So you're really setting this up to design for 3 different things. All right, Flexbox. Flexible box, Flexbox is a box containing items whose sizes can shrink or grow to match the boundaries of the box. These are going to be laid out along the main axis, the items inside the Flexbox. Main axis can point to either horizontal or vertical, and the cross axis is a perpendicular to the main axis. And that's used to define the height and width of each item. So we see an example here of the horizontal and vertical flex boxes. We have a horizontal flex box. We have our cross axis here, and then we have just the opposite here. So vertical flex boxes basically go top to bottom, horizontals left to right. You find a flex box. So we set our display to either flex or inline flex. If we set it to flex, it's going to start the flex box on a new line, and the value of inline flex is going to keep the flex box in line with its surrounding content. Now, we have some browser extensions that's going to define a flex box. You see them entered as display, WebKit box, Moz box, MS flex box. Okay, these are going to be important. All right, so by default, Flexbox items are arranged horizontally, and they start from the left and move to the right. You can change this with the direction. So the direction in this one, the flex direction and the direction value, direction is going to be the row, which is the default, column, row reverse, or column reverse. All right, so we put the row option in. It's going to lay out the flex items from left to right. Column is going to lay them out from starting at the top, moving downward. And the reverse of the column and the row is going to take them from the bottom to top or the right to left. So it's just reversing what we have in the row and column. Flex items try to fit within a single line, either horizontally or vertically. You can wrap these to a new line using the following property. So you use the flex wrap type, where type is either now wrap or no wrap, which is the default, or wrap, which wraps it down to a new line. You also have the wrap reverse. All right, so that wraps flex items to a new line starting in the opposite direction from the current line. So we see an example here. We have our flex fill row wrap, where it goes down to 3, then it wraps down to 4, and so forth. And we also see our column wrap reverse. So instead of going 1, 2, 3, 4, and then starting up here, it's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, and then go to 5 and up. Our flex items are determined by 3 properties: the base size, the growth value, and the shrink value. All right, base size is going to define the initial size of the item before the browser attempts to fit it to the flex box. We can set this using the flex basis and in size. And size is going to be one of the CSS units of measurement. So example, we got the size, and we're setting the flex basis to 200 pixels. All right, the flex growth, this property, this is the rate at which a flex item grows from its base size. So we set that to the flex grow value. Value is a non-negative value that expresses the growth of the flex item relative to the growth of other items in the flex box. By default, that's going to be set to 0. So we see examples here. We've got these both have the same basic size. All right, so this one starts at 1, flex growth of 1 is at 3. So we look at these as they are grown. As this one grows, it's going to add 50 pixels to it. Well, this one here, it's got a flex growth of 3, is going to be expanded to 150. So we look at the style rule here. This creates a layout for the navigation list. And what happens here is each list item is assigned an equal size and grows at the same rate. So we have our navigation, our unordered list. We set our display to flex. And then in the list items, we're setting our flex basis at 0 and our flex growth at 1. So looking at this with the shrink rate, all right, so the shrinking flex items are smaller than their basis size. So we set our flex basis 200. So these are flex grow. This one here, the flex basis set at 200. You see that they're actually 250. Okay, as they're growing. Over here we have 150 pixels. We set our flex basis at 200, but you notice it's only 150 pixels. Okay, because it's going with a shrink rate. So the rate that the flex box shrinks below their base size, our basic size, is given in the following property. So we got flex shrink and then set to value. Now value is a non-negative value. It expresses the shrink rate. The default value is going to be set to 1. And if it is set to 0, then item will not shrink based on its own basis value, below its own basis value. So we set this, syntax for the flex property is flex, grow, shrink, basis. Grow defines the growth of the flex item. Shrink provides a shrink rate. And basis sets the initial size. So we look at the default for this. We see it's flex, 0, 1, and we got it set to auto. So 0 in this case is the growth rate. Shrink is set to 1, and auto is set to the basis initial size. So what's happening here is we'll set the size of the flex box to match the content of the value of its height and width properties. You can also use the following keywords for the flex property. Auto is going to automatically resize the item from its default size. Initial is the default value. You see the equivalent of these. None is going to create an inflexible item that will not shrink or grow. And inherit is used to inherit the flex values of its parent element. So let's look at the CSS to set the flex properties for the flex items in the body page. Excuse me. All right, so we have our header and footer. So we're going to set those at 100%. So it's going to be the entire row. On our aside element, we're going to set the aside element, the initial size 120 pixels, and set the growth or shrink rate factors to 1. So we have it set here. And finally, down here in the section main, so it's going to set the initial size of the main section to 361 pixels. It's going to have a growth and shrink rate of a 3-to-1 ratio compared to the aside element. So we'll see our flex layout with different screen widths here. You can also reorder, allow you to place flex items in any order using the following property: the order of value. The value is an integer. Items with smaller order values are placed before items with larger value, order values. So we see an example here, the aside element on the mobile size will get the order of 99, while the footer gets the order of 100. So that aside element is going to be placed before the body footer. By default, the flex items are going to be laid down at the start of the main axis. You can use the justify content property to apply a different placement. Now, the placement value in this is going to be one of the following keywords. You got flex start, which means the items are going to be positioned at the start of the main axis, which is the default. You have flex end, so they're going to be positioned at the end of the main axis. You can do the center, so it'll be centered along the main axis. Space between means the items are going to be distributed evenly within the first and last aligned with the start and the end of the main axis. And space around. The items are distributed evenly along the main axis with equal space between them and the ends of the flex box. All right, the align content property is going to be similar to the justify content property. So it's going to allow you to arrange multiple lines of content along the flex box cross axis. So you'll use these as the syntax is align dash content and then the value. The value is going to be the keywords. Once again, you got your flex start. It's going to be started at the position at the start of the cross axis. You have the flex end, so it's going to be positioned at the end of the flex axis, from the cross axis. You have stretch. Lines are stretched to fill up the cross axis. You can center it so the lines are centered across the cross axis. Space between, they're going to be distributed evenly between the first and last lines, along with the start and end of the cross axis. And the space around, lines are going to be distributed along the cross axis with equal spaces between them. All right, the align items along the cross axis. Use this with flex items to allow you to put them across the cross axis. We have the same flex start, flex end, center, stretch. So the same information you had before. The align items property, it's only going to be impactful when there's a single line of flex items. You use the align content property when it's the flex block contents for multiple lines of flex items. All right, so if you want to align a single item out of line with flex items, use the align self property. So the values in this one is one of the alignment choices supported by the align self property. All right, a navicon, that's used to indicate the presence of a hidden navigation menu in mobile websites. This is represented by 3 horizontal lines. When the user hovers or touches the navicon, the navigation menu is revealed. So we set the navicon as set as the link, the ID, and then we set our image here. Okay, so this is using the TF_navicon PNG for navigation. All right, so you can also apply a print style sheet. Which allows you to apply a print style sheet. So now the media attribute in this uses the link elements to target style sheets, either screen devices or print devices. So before we've been using this media as a screen. So that's the style sheets designed for screen devices. Now we're going to look at style sheets for print devices. So this is if you wanted to print a web page. You know, there's certain aspects of a web page you may not desire to be printed. You know, waste ink to print off all of the images, ads, and so forth. So you'll have a style sheet set up, just the rules for when it goes to printing. So when you print a page, every printed page in CIST is defined as a page box. And we got two areas. This get your page area, which contains the content of the document, and the margin area, which contains the space between the printed content and the edges of the page. And we do this by applying the at page and then the style rules. Okay, you use the size property. That allows web authors to define the dimensions of the printed page. Width and height are going to be the width and height of a page. Keyword auto lets the browser determine the page dimensions. And the keyword inherit inherits the page size from the parent element. You can also use the page pseudo classes. As you see here, we got the rules set up, so this allows different styles to be defined for different pages. So in this case, we got pseudo class is either going to be first for the first page of the printout, left for the pages that appear on the left, in double-sided printouts, right for pages that appear on the right. We set this up. We define the page, the styles for pages. Other than the first, left, or right, we create a page name. So we set it up at page and then the name and the style rules. The name is the label that's going to be given to the page. You can assign a page name to an element. Use the selector and then the page name. Selector is going to identify the element that was displayed on its own page. And name is the name of a previously defined page style. You can also format hypertext links for printing. So if you want to append the text of a link's URL to a link text, you apply the following styles. So you put the after content and then the link here. Okay, so in this, the after is a pseudo element along with the content property, and then the attribute function here is to retrieve the text of the href attribute and add its content to the page. So it's going out and looking and say, okay, where does this link actually take me to? So we see an example here of using the word wrap property. Now the word wrap property is used to break long text strings at arbitrary points if it extends beyond the boundaries of its container. So looking at this, we have our hypertext link is going to be displayed in black, excuse me, with no underlining. And down here we're going to have the contents of the URL, and it's going to be set in the bold text, and then we're going to word. So we're going to allow the URL to be wrapped in order to preserve page layout. So it's not going to be something that runs off of the screen, something that's going to be printed off. We're going to break it down to the next line. All right, page breaks. These can be inserted either directly before or after an element, and use these properties here. So you use the page break before and the type, or page break after type. Now, the type is going to have the following possible values. It's going to be either always, so it's always, this is used to always place a page break before or after the element. A void will never place a page break. Left will use to place a page break where the next page will be the left page. Right will do the same for the right page. Auto is used to allow the printer to determine whether or not to insert a page break. And inherit is going to insert the page break style from the parent element. You can also prevent page breaks. You can use the keyword avoid in the page break after or page break before properties. So we see an example here of this style rule is preventing page breaks from being added after any of these headings. So anytime it sees the H1 through H6 heading, it's going to avoid, it's going to refuse to add a page break. Now, if you have a page break within a block element, like a paragraph, sometimes you have windows and orphans. A window is a fragment of text left dangling at the top of a page, and an orphan is going to be the text fragment left at the bottom of a page. So when you're working with widows and orphans, to control the size of these, your CSS gives you the following properties that you can use: the widow's value, orphan's value. The value is the number of lines that must appear within the element before a page break can be inserted by a printer. So make sure that you don't have, say, 2 lines of text or a half a line of text at the top and then maybe 1 line at the bottom. If you have this value set to, say, widow set to 5, it's got to have at least 5 lines of text before the page break can be inserted at that point. Okay, so that's the end of chapter 5. If you have any questions, send me an email.